Welcome to my new series called In My Honest Opinion, or IMHO for short. I'm Aaron Ho. IMHO, get it? Ha 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 ha. In this episode, I'm going to talk about the upcoming Apple Arcade, which is coming out this fall. I'm still trying to get my head around Apple Arcade. It hasn't come out yet, but when Tim Cook first announced it, my first thought was, Apple feels really bad about the App Store. Really, Aaron? Now, here's why I think that. Apple is always very, very proud of how much money their App Store makes. And they should be, because it's a big deal. Since 2008, Apple has made $120 billion from the App Store. $120 billion. On January 1st of 2019, Apple made more than $322 million in one day. One day. Whoa. Frick. Now, who else loves the App Store? Well, app developers. Why? Because since 2008, they've been paid out $86 billion, which is, again, a lot of money. Just listen to the applause that Tim Cook gets when he, toots Apple's horn.
The money that developers have earned through the App Store will top $100 billion.
The people clapping the loudest? They're the ones who own Candy Crush. Now, what's cool about the App Store, from my perspective, is the fact that the app market literally didn't exist 12 years ago. And entrepreneurial stuff like that, to me, is pretty cool. It's like Ford and their Model Ts. The car industry basically didn't exist until Mr. Ford decided to mass produce the Ford Model Ts. But like every other industry out there, there's a tiny part that's a little sleazy. In the car industry, it's gonna be the shady mechanics who always find something wrong with your car just to charge you a few extra bucks. And by a few extra bucks, I mean a few $100 extra. Just a few months ago, I took my car in for an oil change. 3 hours later, I got a text that said I needed about $1,700 worth of work done. Now, I told them I only had $900, and they said, well, don't worry, we'll make that work. Now, I thought I was being smart by putting a cap on the potential work they could do, but they ended up charging me $914 worth of work before tax. And to get to $914, they concluded that I needed an optional wheel alignment done. Like, that is just sleazy as. Now, for the App Store, the sleaze comes in the form of pay-to-win games with brutal in-app purchases. Now, in-app purchases make sense to me. It's a great way for developers to make money, but it's the jackass developers who take advantage of that, who create digital crack-addled pay-to-win games that just kind of ruin it for everybody. And do you want to know how much money you can make off of digital crack? Here is a list of the top-grossing iPhone games from thinkgaming.com. Out of the 50 games, only Minecraft is paid. Everything else is free. Now, if we add up all the revenues in this list for one day, you'll see that the free games made almost $10 million while Minecraft made 60 grand, which is still a lot of money, but it's no 10 million. So as a developer, which route are you going to go? Most likely the one that makes a pile of money, but requires you to make free games. Now, the crazy thing with these games is that the more money you spend, the harder it is to actually make progress. Now, my current digital crack addiction is Star Trek Timelines, made by a studio called Disruptor Beam. Now, they do an amazing job of making the game addicting while adding a ton of microtransactions. It is so just perfect what they've done. Want more characters? Pay more money. Want to upgrade Worf dressed as a sheriff? Pay more money. Want to upgrade Worf smoking a cigar? Pay more money. Want to upgrade your ship? Pay money for a loot box that's random. Want to get the last tier in Disruptor Beam's latest cash cow, a thing called campaigns? You need to use 250,000 gems or dilithium crystals, which will cost you between $3,000 and $5,500, depending on how you buy your gems. So for me personally, I could spend $3,000 to get me food for an entire year, or I could spend $3,000, I can give it to Apple and Disruptor Beam and literally get nothing. Now, I understand the business model. I'm a business person. I understand these pay-to-win games, as brutal as I think they are, as you may think they are actually pretty impressive pieces of, I'll say, work. Really, Aaron? These developers have really found a way to keep us all captivated in a soul-sucking, wallet pillaging pay-to-win cycle. In fact, being invested in these pay-to-win games is almost like a job. There's literally 1,000 things to do each day with 1,000 timers, but that's okay because if I watch 7 ads, I'll get 4 free gems. Now, no, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that people shouldn't get paid for their work. They should be paid for their work, but when developers spend all their efforts to figure out how to, again, pillage my wallet, it's a little sickening. It's kind of gross. sleazy. But don't get too outraged yet, because while creating this episode, it kind of dawned on me that there's this golden turd buried in the sleaze, and it's called the Apple credit card. Now, am I the only person who longs for the good old days where you pay once for a game, and then a little bit more for the expansion, and then you pay for full price again for the sequel? Now, back in the good old days, and when I mean good old days, I mean, when I frosted my tips and pretended that I could grow a soul patch. So this uninhibited greed of microtransaction-driven developers is one thing. But here's something else to consider. Have you thought about how much of that money being made by the App Store is actually credit card debt? Because let's face it, it's pretty easy to get carried away with gems or coins or whatever the in-game currency the in-app gremlins decide to use. $100 gem, $100, $100, $100, $100, $100. Honestly, if I spend $100 in real life, I generally have something to show for it. In my early 20s where being metrosexual was a thing, I spent hundreds of dollars on Lululemon jackets. Nobody should ever buy a white Lulu jacket. It gets dirty just sit in my closet after it gets clean. Now, as much as that jacket cost, I technically could still recover part of the cost if somebody really wanted to buy it. Say, a Lululemon jacket collector? I don't know. Regardless, I can't do that with the gems used in that pay-to-win game. Honestly, credit card companies must love the App Store, because I personally find it hard to splurge hundreds of dollars in one store, but gems for a game? Easy peasy. As long as my 30% interest rate credit card limit has been reached, I can keep buying all the gems that I want that are worth absolutely nothing. $100, $100, $100, $100, $100, $100, $100, $100, $100. Come here. Oh. Monty got scared. And that's the golden turd. That's why I think Apple's getting into the credit card game. Because out of all the transactions that occur in Apple's ecosystem, credit card transactions is something that Apple has had no fingers in. Until now. Now, I did enjoy watching Apple play the good guy in the intro to the credit card during that one keynote. They really stepped into the moniker of the friendly financial institution looking out for you. I wonder if they're going to have a section in their spending breakdown for the Apple credit card called Bought Useless Gems for a Dumb Game. But at the end of the day, will Apple do anything to curb how dumb pay to win is? Doubtful. Why? Because Apple has 120 billion reasons not to since, 2008. But somewhere in Apple's DNA is this thing where they want to do the best thing for their customers. Like, it's still kind of ingrained. Google's kind of lost, in my opinion. They just want to pillage our data and sell it for as much money as they possibly can. And this desire to do the best thing for their customers is, I think, where Apple Arcade came from. With Apple Arcade, you pay $10 or however much you paid based on your geographic location. I get to pay 14, but with my 14 and or $10, you get to access non-pay-to-win games. What? Now, these non-pay-to-win games, their sole existence is to deliver you an entertaining experience with no microtransactions. Let that sink in.
No microtransactions.
These games are going to be created by developers whose sole purpose is to entertain you. An experience where the developer reacts to delight its audience rather than trying to figure out how to scam you out of $6 for a 24-hour power-up. An experience where the developer grabs you and pulls you into their imaginary world with stories and just memorable moments, character development at a pace that's enjoyable. Honestly, when was the last time you played a game that just left a mark in your memories? For me personally, it was Knights of the Old Republic. Revan, Malik, HK-47, those characters were freaking awesome. I play that game once every 2 years, and I've been doing that since whenever it came out, in 2006? And a close second, in my mind anyways, is 98% of Mass Effect 3, or, 99.9% of the Mass Effect series, excluding Mass Effect Andromeda. Now, with Mass Effect 3, I still can't get over how terrible the last 2% of that game was. So bad. But the first 98%... Those games were captivating, engrossing, storytelling at its best. Star Trek Timelines is literally a skid mark on my credit card statements. Now, from my perspective, I'm excited to see what kind of games get developed. It's like a chef's tasting menu. You're going to pay a flat fee for a meal, and you're going to eat whatever the chef is inspired to create. That's awesome. I love food. There's a good chance I might love Apple Arcade. But at the end of the day, Apple Arcade comes out this fall. I haven't used it. No one else really has seen it. So no matter how great and or dumb it's going to be, it's still going to happen, I guess. And I'm excited to see kind of what happens. I'm excited to see what kind of games developers come up with. I'm also excited to see how well my eGPU works, because let's face it, gaming on a Mac is... So I've shared my opinion for the last few minutes now, so I want to hear what you guys think about the Apple Arcade, so leave it in the comments section below. I will reply to the probably first 100 or so comments, and then after that, maybe I'll pop by every once in a while. So if this is the first time you're watching anything I've made, this is actually the pilot episode for In My Honest Opinion. Pretty excited to actually finish this. I usually do a ton of other reviews and other stuff with, generally iPhone accessories. So if that is of interest, subscribe. There's also a bunch of other episodes coming your way. So go! $100, $100, $100.